Back in March 2011, two university students headed out on what was supposed to be an unforgettable hiking trip through Colca Canyon, one of the most dangerous and unpredictable spots in Peru. Dead set on exploring the terrain their own way, they decided to go without a guide, relying totally on their instincts and determination. But what started as an adventurous journey quickly turned into a mystery packed with contradictions, unanswered questions, and unsettling disappearances. What happened deep inside that canyon is still a haunting mystery. Witness accounts didn't match up, key evidence vanished, and crucial questions were left hanging. Everything points to what went down in those remote mountains being way more disturbing than it first seemed. Colca Canyon, down in southern Peru's Arequipa region, is a place where breathtaking natural beauty slams right into nature's harshest extremes. Known as the deepest canyon on the planet, maxing out over 13,400 feet deep, it's a treacherous landscape, thin air, wild temperature swings, and unpredictable weather. This combo makes it both a magnet for thrill-seeking travelers and a potential danger zone for anyone unprepared. Over the years, Colca has gotten a reputation not just for its scenery, but for tragic stuff involving missing persons and deadly accidents. Locals, used to its mood swings, often say it's a place where nature makes the rules. On March 30th, 2011, a young couple, Ciro Castillo Rojo and Rosario Ponce, headed into the canyon. Both were university students and had only been dating a few months. Even though they had limited experience with extreme hiking, they decided to trek solo, skipping guided tours and group trips. Their goal was the ancient Chimpa Fortress, an archaeological site perched on a hilltop with killer views of the canyon. The route would take them through the towns of Chivli and Madrigal, where they stocked up on food and water before heading into the canyon with their backpacks and a trail other hikers used. The trail they picked was pretty well known and clearly marked. It wasn't considered super tough and usually didn't need advanced skills. But the pair's biggest mistake might have been underestimating the terrain's complexity and how disorienting the altitude could be. While Ciro had some basic survival training, it wasn't enough to make up for the lack of navigation tools or satellite communication. They had no GPS, no emergency beacon, and no backup plan. It was a risk they took willingly. At first, nothing seemed off. They had water, food, warm clothes, and a clear goal. Photos and witness statements from the early days showed them looking calm and confident. But underneath, they weren't ready for any unexpected problems. In such a rugged spot, even a small navigation mistake can turn into a crisis. Sudden weather changes, rocky ground, possible wildlife run-ins. All these threats were real and they didn't fully account for them. Later, it would become painfully clear just how shaky their prep had been. They hadn't shared the exact route coordinates with family or friends, and they didn't set up a solid check-in plan. All they had were basic ways to communicate, limited supplies, and a firm belief they could handle anything. That misplaced confidence would turn out to be a critical mistake. Against this backdrop, a story unfolded that would grip the whole country and spark intense public debate. What began as a casual hike through scenic land would soon become a case marked by a mysterious disappearance, rumors, conflicting stories, legal battles, and a deep crack in public trust between a key witness and the nation watching. But at the moment when Ciro and Rosario started their descent into Colca, no one, not even them, could have guessed only one would come back. Ciro Castillo Rojo was born on May 16, 1984, in Lima, Peru's capital. His family lived in the city. His dad, also named Ciro Castillo, was a well-known doctor, and his mom, Rosario Garcia Caballero, was a homemaker. Not much is known about Ciro's early years. But one thing certain, he had a deep love for the outdoors and a thirst for adventure. That passion steered his career path. He enrolled at the Agrarian University in Lima, majoring in forestry. It was there on campus that he met Rosario Ponce. Rosario was born on October 6, 1986, also in Lima. She was the daughter of Eduardo Ponce and Maria del Carmen Lopez. By the time she met Ciro, she'd already faced some heavy personal stuff. At 17, she got pregnant by a guy named Abbas. Though their relationship ended, they stayed in touch. It's unclear if that pregnancy ended in a birth. No further info is available. When their relationship started, Ciro had just broken up with a woman named Isabel Segura. Isabel would later describe him as kind, caring, and super attentive. Rosario, on the other hand, carried more emotional weight from her past. Despite that, they clicked fast and hard. They started dating late in 2010, and within just 4 months, they were planning a trip through southern Peru together. They were both almost done with university and felt they'd earned a break. Their trip kicked off with visits to Cusco and Puno before heading toward Colca Canyon in March. Ciro was especially pumped about hiking to the ruins of an ancient fortress. Rosario was totally on board. Their last stop before starting the hike was the village of Madrigal. From there, they prepped for the climb toward the Chimpa fortress. The route to Chimpa was generally manageable. The trail was clearly marked and used a lot by other hikers. Under normal conditions, the risk of getting lost was low. But for reasons unknown, Ciro and Rosario decided to leave the main path and take a different route. That single decision changed everything. It led them into a part of the canyon that was unfamiliar and way harder to navigate. They'd never find their way out on their own. On April 4th, 2011, while the couple was somewhere in the Colca region, they were spotted by 2 miners, Tita Lupa and Miro Conori. The guys were working in the area and saw Ciro and Rosario pass by. The miners later reported that the pair seemed fine. No signs of panic or distress. In fact, Ciro even talked with them and said where they were headed. This became the last confirmed sighting of Ciro and Rosario together, both looking okay. But soon, everything changed. The last confirmed communication involving Ciro Castillo Rojo came on April 4th. That day, he and Rosario Ponce spoke with Efren Matos, a friend of Rosario's. They reported they'd lost the trail and weren't sure where they were. At that point, Ciro was still with Rosario and spoke on the phone himself. But just one day later, everything flipped. From then on, Rosario's messages stopped mentioning Ciro. Instead, she started texting Efren from her own perspective. "I'm lost. Please help me." According to her story, on the evening of April 4th, they made the tough call to split up. She claimed she felt completely wiped out and couldn't go on. Ciro, she said, decided to go look for help, heading toward what looked like the nearest settlement from their spot. She stayed behind, waiting in a place she thought was relatively safe. From that moment on, she never saw him again. Rosario later said that just hours after he left, darkness fell and the temperature plunged. She found shelter among rocks and tried to make it through the night. When morning came, Ciro hadn't returned. With no food, no way to get her bearings, and no way to communicate, she spent the next few days alone. She claimed she survived by eating grass, bark, and small insects. She drank water from streams. But according to her, the biggest challenge wasn't physical, it was mental. The fear of wild animals, especially pumas known to live there, and the crushing isolation became almost too much. By April 6th, even before the disappearance was officially reported, 3 rescue teams had joined the search. 14 trained specialists were involved, backed up by locals. Hope was still alive. They figured the pair might be holed up in a cave or hidden among rocks. But no voices, footprints, or signs of life were found in a search zone. The search kept going for nearly 2 weeks. Finally, on April 13th, Rosario Ponce was found in the highlands, near a place later named Cerro Fortaleza. She was in really bad shape. First responders gave emergency care on site before airlifting her to a Red Cross clinic in Arequipa and later moving her to a private hospital in Lima. Doctors noted extreme dehydration, major weight loss, eye damage from sun and wind, and total physical exhaustion. However, there were no injuries suggesting a struggle or outside attack. She was stable enough to talk and gave her first statement right away. She stuck to her story that Ciro had gone for help, and she'd waited as long as she could. Her rescue became national news in Peru. But the fact Ciro was still missing and that the whole account now relied only on her words sparked huge skepticism. A lot of people found Rosario's behavior weird. She didn't seem visibly upset, showed no signs of breaking down on camera, and answered questions without much emotion. Some started thinking her reactions were too controlled to be real. Ciro's parents, especially his mom, couldn't accept their son just vanishing. They hoped Rosario, the last person to see him alive, would give as much info as possible. But her account was vague and lacked specifics. According to Ciro's mom, even before Rosario was rescued, she'd shared a different version over the phone. Rosario allegedly said they'd seen distant lights at night, and Ciro decided he'd head that way the next morning. She refused to go because she was exhausted, so he went alone. This version didn't match the official statements Rosario gave after she got to the hospital. Soon, more inconsistencies popped up. Certain details in her story changed between different interviews. At one point, she said he left in the morning. In another, she claimed it was at night. In some accounts, there'd been an argument. In others, they made decisions together. These contradictions grabbed the attention of both investigators and the media. Public opinion started shifting fast. Rosario no longer seemed like someone who'd survived a terrifying ordeal alone in the mountains. More and more people began asking, was she actually telling the truth? Amid growing doubt, Ciro's dad traveled to Chile and joined the search himself. He met with search teams coming back from the canyon every day, begging them not to quit. While police and military units widened the search area, the main focus shifted toward understanding things better. Ciro's dad sent a letter to Peru's president at the time, Alan Garcia. In it, he asked for direct government help and a bigger search operation. The appeal worked. The military got called in. The army brought equipment, helicopters, and high-altitude specialists. Plus, the national police got more involved, assigning investigative teams that specialized in serious crimes and missing persons. The number of rescue folks grew. Soon, 16 teams, about 50 people, were working across Colca Canyon. The search area got way bigger, but the coordinates Rosario gave didn't lead anywhere useful. In a desperate move, Ciro's dad offered a cash reward to anyone with info on his son's location. The phone number listed got swamped with calls. Hundreds poured in, but none led to solid info. Authorities noted several false reports and attempts to mess with them. Lots of tips were dead ends. Despite this, Ciro's dad refused to back down. He helped create a new search grid, worked directly with government agencies, and got the Sinchis involved, a highly trained police unit specializing in extreme terrain. These elite officers started combing the hardest-to-reach parts of the canyon, including areas missed before. They searched caves, rock formations, glacial zones, and near-vertical cliffs. A month passed, then two. Still, no sign of Ciro. No clothes, no gear, no physical evidence he'd ever been there. None of the theories panned out. The search became the longest civilian rescue effort in the country's history. While media attention slowly faded, Ciro's dad stayed rock solid. His son needed to be found, alive or not. He deserved to come home. During this time, he repeatedly criticized Rosario's lack of involvement, especially her refusal to go back to Colca to help investigators. The official reason was emotional exhaustion. But to the Castillo family, it felt like avoidance. As tensions rose, the idea of filing a formal complaint against Rosario, as the last person to see Ciro, started circulating. Meanwhile, Ciro's dad kept waking up each morning hoping someone from the rescue teams would finally say, "We found him." Around this time, investigators found footage taken during the search. The video showed Rosario at a street celebration. She looked calm, smiling, well-dressed, and showed no visible signs of being sick or weak. The footage was dated the same day her lawyer had cited health problems as a reason for skipping legal stuff. The public reaction was fast and furious. Her image as someone who'd endured a tragedy started crumbling. More people began seeing her as someone who might be hiding critical details. As public pressure built, the prosecutor's office stepped up efforts. Under scrutiny, Rosario finally agreed to do a reconstruction of the hike on the condition her parents could come with her. On the first day, her parents cited fatigue and couldn't go on, so the reenactment got postponed. It wasn't until the second try in late August that Rosario walked part of the trail with investigators. However, no new leads or evidence turned up. Her behavior during the reconstruction was described as emotionally distant, again sparking mixed reactions. More doubts came up when Rosario's mom made a public comment, suggesting Ciro might have left Rosario in the mountains on purpose. Though many thought this was unlikely, it added fuel to an already skeptical fire, especially as the chances of finding Ciro alive got slimmer. Despite the mounting contradictions, the prosecutor's office still didn't have direct evidence to charge Rosario. Yet, by that point, the public had mostly stopped seeing her as just a survivor. One potentially huge piece of the puzzle was Rosario Ponce's camera. Authorities knew about it since her rescue, but the device wasn't handed over to investigators until almost a month later. No independent forensic experts had gotten to it during that time. Only after constant public pressure did Rosario's legal team give the camera to prosecutors. The delay raised serious questions. Why wasn't a device that could have vital clues submitted immediately? After the camera was finally handed over, digital forensics experts from the High-Tech Crime Investigation Unit started analyzing it. Right away, they noticed signs of possible tampering. According to investigators, the file structure looked messed up. 9 photos were missing from the sequence. Rosario, in her testimony, denied deleting or editing any images. But forensic analysts concluded the deletions were intentional, not accidental. While the deleted files couldn't be fully recovered, their file numbers and timestamps clearly showed they were taken while Ciro and Rosario were deep in Colca Canyon. This matched the time when the two were in one of the most remote parts of the route. It raised major concerns that those photos might have shown moments contradicting Rosario's story. Another troubling detail suggested that not all of the photos could have been taken by Rosario or Ciro. This sparked a new wave of speculation. Investigators started considering the possibility that a third person might have been with them on the hike from the start. Public interest shifted back to Rosario's background. Before dating Ciro, she'd been in a relationship with Victor Carlos Cabrera Cordova, the son of the lawyer who would later represent her. 2 years after the case closed, she'd eventually marry him. But in 2011, that detail fueled rumors. Some articles floated the theory that Victor might have gone with Rosario on the trip and his involvement was hidden later. Supporters of this theory pointed to the weird stuff with the photos and the deleted images as potential evidence of a third person. No direct proof backing this theory ever came up. No witness said they saw Victor or anyone else with the pair during the hike. Still, investigators couldn't definitively explain who the third figure in the images could be or why photos showing them would be erased. Rosario insisted she never touched the camera after her rescue, but forensic data suggested otherwise. Officially, this theory stayed speculative. But in the public eye, it took on a life of its own. People started questioning not just Rosario's honesty, but whether she'd really been alone with Ciro when it all happened. The camera, which could have been key evidence in her favor, instead became a source of deeper suspicion. The question of the third person was never answered. On October 16, 2011, over 6 months after he disappeared, a search team found the remains of Ciro Castillo Rojo near Mount Bomboya. His body was on a narrow rock ledge in an area called the Las Mochilas Cascade. It was one of the hardest-to-reach parts of the canyon, close to where Rosario had earlier been rescued. The vertical distance between where they were thought to have separated and where the body was found was several hundred feet. The area had only been partially searched before because the terrain was so tough. The body was found curled up in a fetal-like position. Ciro was barefoot, wearing only socks that had noticeable damage. Nearby, rescuers found personal stuff scattered on the slope: a lighter, a hat, a scarf, and pieces of clothing. A bright red piece of fabric, thought to be part of his jacket, was visible on one of the rocks. That bright color helped the search team spot the scene from a distance. It took over 2 hours to recover the body. After they got it out, it was taken to Arequipa for a forensic exam. According to the official report, the cause of death was multiple injuries from a fall from a significant height. Fractures were found in the skull, collarbone, right arm, and ribs. Experts determined the trauma wasn't instantly fatal. Ciro had survived roughly 8 hours after the fall before dying from internal injuries and hypothermia. One big question was whether outside involvement could be ruled out. The autopsy showed no signs of blunt force trauma from an object, no weapon wounds, and no evidence of a struggle or being restrained. Forensic experts concluded the fall didn't seem to be the result of someone attacking him. This official finding got mixed reactions. Investigators paid close attention to the condition of his socks. The report said the holes were small and on the soles, suggesting they happened during the fall rather than from walking barefoot on rocks for a long time. Also, experts noted that if he'd been pushed or thrown, the injury patterns would have been different, likely more extensive internal trauma and a different pattern of breaks. Still, the case left tons of questions. Why wasn't he wearing shoes? Why was his body found in that specific spot, relatively close to where Rosario had been, yet went undiscovered for months? How could so many big search operations have missed the body in that exact area? And while there were no signs of an attack, investigators admitted that a fall from high up could have moved the body, making it hard to interpret. The forensic report didn't give a definite answer. Officially, the death was ruled an accident, caused by a misstep, getting disoriented, or trying to climb down looking for a way out. But for Ciro's family and much of the public, that conclusion left major doubts. What mattered most to them was this: Ciro died alone, and the only person who might know the whole story was Rosario. And her account kept raising conflicting questions. After Ciro Castillo Rojo's remains were found, investigators had what many saw as a crucial piece of evidence. But instead of leading to quick closure, it kicked off a new legal phase. The district attorney's office reopened the case for a full review, rechecking testimony, forensic reports, and digital data. The key question was whether the case should be pursued further. In October 2011, Rosario Ponce was called in again for questioning. Authorities hoped her story might change or expand now that Ciro's death was confirmed. However, she stuck to her previous account, that Ciro had gone off to find help and she'd waited behind. She insisted the whole thing was a tragic accident. Around the same time, prosecutors announced plans for more forensic tests and new witness interviews. By December, the investigation team formally asked for a 120-day extension. This was because they needed a deeper dive into medical records, digital evidence, including Rosario's camera photos, witness statements, and search reports. While the accident theory was still the main explanation, some documents hinted that outside involvement hadn't been completely ruled out. In this uncertain legal atmosphere, Rosario did a TV interview where she talked about the incident again. On camera, she looked tense but offered a faint, tight smile. When asked straight up about the investigation, she replied, "He just fell. It was an accident. It's terrible, but that's what happened." The public mostly hated it. Viewers criticized not just what she said, but how she said it, especially the lack of visible emotion. In early 2012, Rosario's legal team filed a motion to dismiss everything, saying there wasn't enough evidence of wrongdoing. Meanwhile, the prosecutor's office asked the National Police for more materials. Around then, leaked audio from an interrogation surfaced in the media, suggesting Rosario might have been pressured by investigators. This led to an internal review of how the case was handled. Through all this, Ciro's parents kept demanding the investigation move forward. His dad publicly accused prosecutors of negligence, claiming over 200 pieces of evidence, including indirect clues, had been ignored. He argued Rosario was the only person there when his son vanished, and her story was still inconsistent. In his view, the case couldn't close without a full reconstruction and a direct face-to-face confrontation. Despite the ongoing public heat and family pressure, the prosecutor's office made its final call in September 2013. The Second Court of Appeals in Arequipa ruled to formally close the case regarding a possible crime involving Ciro Castillo Rojo. The court said there wasn't enough evidence to justify criminal charges. That decision marked the official end of the investigation. For Ciro's parents, the case closing felt deeply personal. According to his dad, the decision was a justice failure, a sign the system didn't care. He accused investigators of critical errors and wasting precious time. Rosario's lawyer, meanwhile, said his client had been unfairly targeted from the start and that accusations were based on speculation, not evidence. And so, one of Peru's highest-profile investigations ended. No trial, no charges, countless questions unanswered. Even after the case officially closed in September 2013, the story of Ciro Castillo Rojo's disappearance and death didn't fade. The investigation might have ended, but public talk kept going. Theories, contradictions, and unofficial suspicions kept circulating. At the center of it all was still Rosario Ponce, whose role kept drawing attention and criticism. 2 years after the legal case closed, in September 2015, the media published photos from Rosario's wedding. She'd married Victor Carlos Cabrera Cordova, the son of her former lawyer, Miguel Cabrera. The ceremony was small and private. It was later reported Rosario was expecting. That news reignited public interest, especially among folks who'd long suspected Victor might have some connection to the Colca events. The fact Rosario and Victor reportedly knew each other before she met Ciro only fed lingering doubts. Ciro's family, especially his dad, never accepted his son's death was an accident. He repeatedly claimed the evidence was insufficient and the court's ruling unfair. In his view, investigators overlooked or didn't follow up on tons of indirect leads. He stayed convinced Ciro's death involved outside factors, not just a tragic misstep. Public opinion on Rosario stayed split. On one hand, there was no smoking gun directly tying her to wrongdoing. On the other, her behavior throughout, the delayed camera handover, deleted photos, limited cooperation at key points, left tons of concerns unresolved. Her interview with that tense smile and footage of her at public events when she was supposedly too emotionally unwell only deepened public doubt. Legally, the case was shut. But for Ciro's loved ones and a big chunk of the public, it never felt truly over. Many believe the real truth was left out of the official record and that real answers were still out of reach. Thanks for watching. Your support means the world, and you can help my channel grow by hitting that like button, dropping a comment, and sharing this video. See you soon.